Uh-huh. Good. Okay.
Hi everyone, today we're talking to Sam Maitra. Sam is a GI actuary with over 20 years experience. He's held senior actuarial roles across insurers, reinsurers, and even a mutual as both in-house roles and consulting roles. Today, Sam is a freelance GI actuary and also is working on a startup involving reducing plastic waste. So Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Julia. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to hear about reducing plastic waste, but there's a couple of things I'd like to talk to you about first.
Sure.
You've had, kind of what some people would describe as a traditional actuarial career, but you've also done some sort of more non-traditional type things too. So I'm really interested to hear from you how you find purpose and meaning in your work as an actuary.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think, look, purpose is really important. And I think over time, I've discovered how important it is to me because of the amount of energy and just the different type of, right now I feel like I've got purpose in everything that I do. So I find that I just have boundless amounts of energy coming out of me. I used to be in a situation where when I didn't feel that way, I felt like my tank was always emptying and I needed to keep topping it up. So purpose is really important. And what I would say is that being an actuary, you need to, sometimes there's a bit of a trick. You need to kind of look for purpose where you feel like, you need to kind of look for purpose where it's not always obvious that it's there. So insurance is actually a really important thing. It's a really important social construct. Think about the devastating consequences to an individual or to a household if something went wrong. And then think about the concept where the community actually shares in that burden in some kind of a way. So insurance may seem like this huge money-making venture, but really what's actually behind it is a really important social construct. And then think about your role within insurance. So you may not be someone who's actually dealing with a customer, but you may actually be supporting someone who is dealing with a customer. You may be helping someone who's on the member services side to make their operation more efficient, so then they can actually keep doing that. You may be helping out claims reporting for your claims team, so they can actually do a better job and keep costs down for customers. Reserving, which sometimes people feel is a little bit, I guess, on the boring side. I actually don't think that's the case.
Like reserving?
Well, I think if you don't, I think you need to reserve to be able to price. And if you don't understand reserving, you're going to get your premium pool wrong. So reserving first. Pricing is more fun, but reserving first. But look, even if you're reserving or pricing an insurance product, you're still part of that process of maintaining a sustainable insurance system that society needs. So I guess if when you think about purpose and you think about world peace or climate change or anything like that, don't necessarily think that insurance is an important part of society. And then I guess what I'll also say is, if you look for purpose, it can come for you in different aspects as well. So you can often get purpose from your team or from the people that you work with. So it's not the work. It's for me. It's two aspects. It's the work that you do and the impact that has on society, and then it's who you work with. Yep. And oftentimes you can get so much purpose just from helping other people around you. We are social creatures, right? We're actually hardwired biologically, so the species would survive to help each other and for that to actually have a positive impact on ourselves and for others. So you can actually get an enormous amount of purpose being part of a team or leading others or following your leader, if that's someone who you believe in, or helping the claims team, or helping them complete this project because everyone's been working really hard on it and they need you to come in at the end and do some funky spreadsheets. Or, it doesn't matter. Like there's so many different ways to kind of to feel that you've got purpose and you're doing something that's important and valuable. But sometimes there's a trick that you just need to look for it.
To look for it. So for an actuary who's sort of buried in a funky spreadsheet and wondering what their meaning or contribution is, bigger picture, thinking more broadly, it might not be right in front of you, but actually looking at, where's that funky spreadsheet going, and who's going to use it, and who's going to be impacted, and who's going to benefit from that, but also who's around you, who you're working with, and what positive impact are you making on the people that you're working with day to day as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, just that act of asking that question can lead to two really positive outcomes. The first thing it can do is that it can make you realize that what you're doing is important and it is valuable, and it will engage you differently in it.
Yep.
And the second thing it will do is that if it's not of value, it'll make you ask the question, why am I doing this?
Why am I doing it?
Why am I doing it?
Do something else?
And I should do something else, because I should be using my time to do something else important.
Yeah.
So, but look, there's no better feeling at the end of the week when the weekend comes. I always used to think it was just, oh, great, work's over now and the weekend's here. But where you actually feel like, I've accomplished something this week, or I accomplished something today that I feel really good about, that will keep you going through work and through life.
That will keep your tank full. That'll recharge you.
That's right. That's right. So it's super
excellent.
Important.
No, that's good. I mean, some people do say, something along the lines of, if you love your work, you'll never work a day in your life, sort of thing. I mean, can it go too far if you're, so passionate about your work and you've got so much purpose? What happens if it goes too far and you don't want to stop on the weekend? What are your tips around work-life balance and managing that side of things?
Really good lead in for that. So look, work can become, or any particular thing that you focus on too much, you can become obsessive with it. And people need to define what work-life balance actually means for them. And the best definition that I was told once was, it's where you get as much energy out of work than it takes from you, which kind of makes it sustainable.
Before, but it makes sense.
I like it because it's contextual to your current sort of to your current circumstances as well. Like if you've got a really young family and you're working 5 days and you're up till midnight, taking care of the household or something like that with your partner, or otherwise, or you've just got other commitments, then maybe that is just out from an hour's perspective too much, right? But from a work-life balance perspective, I've been in a situation in the past where I had a lot of those things that I was describing around purpose. I was working for a company where I believed in the ultimate vision of it. I was working for a leader who I just loved and still do love today, and doing really, really exciting work. But it turned me into a workaholic. I could not switch off from work. I was so focused on taking us forward so quickly, and it became unsustainable. I felt I was in a situation where everyone was throwing the work at me, but it was really me, in some respects, enabling that to happen and cultivating situations where that would happen more and more. And I think when you do a lot of work and people actually feel like you're doing lots of high quality work, there's always a nuanced little situation there where really you can actually be the one that's actually driving more of that work to happen faster and faster. Or if it's just a sort of a one-off sort of project where you need to kind of, knuckle down for a few weeks or maybe even a few months. And I failed to see that I was also one of the driving forces behind that, because I was so hungry to move forward, right? Yeah. And yes, it was giving me purpose, and yes, it was doing all these things, but I wasn't happy. I felt trapped. I felt exhausted. I've got 11-year-old twins, but at the time they were only 10 months old and they weren't sleeping.
Oh, wow.
So I thought I was the hero because I would leave work at 5, race home, help with bath and bedtime with the kids, then jump on the computer again at 8 o'clock, work all the way to 1 o'clock in the morning, do the 1 a.m. feed, so my wife would get a bit more sleep,
Yeah.
And then
You were the hero
yeah.
at work and at home and in your marriage. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was trying to be the hero. But I tell you what, no one was like, I certainly wasn't happy. My wife felt that even though I was there, I wasn't super present. I was still kind of at work, even though I was at home.
Yeah. You were kind of going through the motions, but your mind wasn't always fully present.
I wasn't fully there, and I missed time that I don't think I'll ever get back with my children, right? Because like being present and being in the moment is a very different thing to actually physically being there and doing the things that you were doing, right?
Definitely.
So I guess I was quite lucky, even though that was happening, well, sort of before that. I think I was quite lucky because it only kind of lasted a few years, and I was quite lucky. My wife just sort of, like in a very supportive way, said, "Sam, you've got 12 months to change, or you're out."
Right. Okay. So she gave you an ultimatum, and that was the catalyst for you to. Was that the first time that you realised that things weren't okay, or things had gone too far? Or
well, it was really interesting because it was the first time that I actually realised that I had gone too far. Was I had a professional coach arranged through work, right? And it was he who kind of just sort of said, look, he used it in the context of men, but I think it happens to women as well. He said, men get into this trap of their entire identity gets overly attached to what they accomplish at work. Because at work, you get the gratification straight, you get the feedback and the gratification straight away.
Yep.
When you go home and you're present with your kids, no one else can tell, only you can tell, right? Look, your wife can tell because they can tell everything.
And your kids will tell you in 20 years' time.
Kids will tell you in 20 years' time when
there's no real-time feedback though.
There's no real-time feedback, so the dopamine hit's not there, and being the hero, in the modern world is kind of like being the hero at work, the guy that solves all the problems and the go-to guy and all that kind of stuff. So that can become an unhealthy part of your identity. And it was funny because it was a professional coach who just kind of like, he laid it out to me in that way. And I just went, oh God. And then I went back and then I went home to my wife and to my close friends and I said, oh, do you know what? And they were like, Sam, we've been telling you this for 3 years. Excuse me. And I just couldn't hear it. You
couldn't see it. You needed someone outside to actually hold that mirror up and to lay it out in those terms.
Sometimes you do. And then I said, what do you mean you told me? And they said, Sam, we had full-blown interventions. We had interventions when we were all sitting around together and we're saying, Sam, look at me. You have a problem. This is not okay. You're hurting, you're damaging yourself and you're damaging people around you. And I'd say, yeah, look, I know it's not sustainable, but look, we'll just get over this one last project and that'll be
one next bit.
And it was always, and it never ended. And it was me that was kind of making everything so important, like it was the end of the world if it didn't, if we didn't do an amazing job. But do you know what? The thing that we did at that point in time was the biggest thing at that point in time, but it's not the biggest thing anymore because organizations move on, right? Organizations move on, and it doesn't detract from the work that we did at that point in time, but it's a good thing that organizations move on. So, so you kind of really need to, well, I certainly need to, especially if you've got any kind of obsessiveness in your personality kind of makeup, or an addictive personality like I do, you need to be really careful about work-life balance.
Yeah. It's a really good lesson, Sam. And so what happened? How did you overcome that once you realized that was happening? What steps did you take to get out of that?
Yeah, so I think the realization just kind of, as soon as I kind of realized something, my mind sort of changes quite quickly. So then what I kind of did is I was able, it actually made me a lot more effective at work because I right-sized everything. I didn't try to make everything a huge thing. So it meant that I just kind of hit the really important things, did it really kind of effectively, engage with people quite well.
Yeah.
Yes, we could do some stuff later on. There's always going to be a phase 2, but I've got 5 other phase 1s that I need to work on. So we're just, so that's good, and it's good enough right now.
Yeah.
And then you check that is the case, and then you just move forward. And so I got 3 times more work done when I was working less. because I
Wow.
was really effective.
Yep.
I was balanced, I was sharp. I never kind of missed little details or what I thought was little details and ended up being important. And by the end, by not being sustainable and being tired and worn down all the time, my performance levels were dropping. I was still getting the highest performance rating as possible, but my performance was dropping.
It was taking a lot more to get there.
It
sounds like really it was awareness. It was awareness and that self-awareness and having other people around you helping to see what was happening. And then once you could see what was happening, you then took steps to right size everything around you and get some perspective around those tasks and just try and sort of ease things back to get a bit more balance.
Yeah. And then kind of transitioned everybody else around me who was relying on me to still kind of, because the problem with, the difficulty with it is that expectations then get set all the way up here. It actually takes a while to manage expectations, and no workplace will ever say, so workplaces will always say, yes, we want you to be sustainable, but no one will say, yes, Sam, you should do less work.
Do less.
They won't say that. They were like, what? No, I've got 5 projects on the go with you.
That's right.
You can't,
especially when you're in that sweet spot where you love what you're doing and you've got great leaders and you're ticking all those boxes and you're getting that external validation and dopamine rush of achieving things. And I'm sure a lot of actuaries could relate to that, because just to get through all of the exams, we need to have a certain level of high performance, grit, resilience, and just stubbornness to actually get all the way through. So definitely. I'm sure there's a lot of actuaries that would, resonate with some of those traits that you've described too.
Yeah. I think as a profession, we're at high risk because it takes so long to get it takes so much discipline to get there. And often we don't have discipline when we're younger because we haven't formed it yet. So all the things that you said, stubbornness, not willing to fail. Those types of things are kind of what get us through.
Sort of risk factors for us, aren't they? Yeah,
and they become risk factors in life, right? So every trait has its upsides and its downsides, and you kind of we need to be mindful of those downsides as well.
And then learning from that, I suppose. I doubt you'll have another experience like that because you've been through that and you've learned from it, and you'll be more aware to those signs, and other people will be aware to that as well.
Yeah.
So Sam, you mentioned that you were working with a professional coach, like someone sort of external that was helping you.
Yeah.
Do you think that leaders all need that kind of coaching? Do you think that we're all sort of made, or do you think leaders are born? Like, what's your take on the whole born versus made aspect?
Yeah. So super interesting. I kind of for me, what a leader is, for me, knowing what that actually is and what the context of leadership and how it's spoken of today is kind of relatively new to me. I used to think a leader was someone who, and it took me a while to realize that that my definition needs to change. Initially, I used to think a leader was, if you think about it, like when you're sort of growing up, it's the person who kind of put their hand up first to do something, and other people were kind of a little bit maybe apprehensive, right?
So maybe someone that was brave enough to volunteer.
Brave or confident early.
Confident,
right? Or then there's kind of like leadership in the context of like how it translates to us now is technical leadership. Are you the best at something? You're a leader because you ran fastest and you came first. So I used to think being a leader in your field, and look, it can as well, like being a leader in your field can also mean that you are technically the most competent, or you are the most advanced at something, or you are leading, and then there's the type of leadership which I only kind of learned of later on in life when I started reading about leadership, is leading others, leading other people.
Leading other people.
Yeah. And through leading other people, you can lead organizations forward, right? Because organizations are just people and activity. There's nothing else. So, so in terms of the born versus made thing, it's interesting which type of leader you're talking about. So if it's to put your hand up first, I think, a lot of our personality is genetic. A lot of our personality and self-esteem are dictated by things that happened when we were 7. And I think in the context of born and made, we probably include that in the born category, I guess, in some respects, because it kind of happened before the making works at work, I guess. I don't know exactly where the line's drawn, but But all those
sort of
things,
something fundamental in our makeup as who we are as people and our
that's
genetic
exactly.
sort of biological sort of composition.
That's right. That's right. And then you've got the made aspects, which are self-esteem, which can mean confidence. It can mean, but genetics can also mean, I've got a really high IQ, or I can run really fast, right? So I can get in my field. But I think in terms of leading, and also those types of people who are, I guess if I group those together in the born category, no clear black and white lines, but if I do that, they're the kind of people who tend to be at the front early. So sometimes you actually think that they're actual leaders. But what I find is that when you're thinking about leadership of others, then most of those characteristics are actually, I believe, actually made.
You think they're made? You think they're things that people learn over time?
They learn over time. They're not the ones that were the captain of the team because they didn't take those steps forward early on. But over time, when it comes to actually really leading people, as opposed to being in a leadership position, they're not always the same thing. And slowly over time, the ones that are made really well, they have more of a chance of getting into a leadership position, but sometimes it's just the captain of the football team who's also the CEO, to be perfectly honest, because it's a confidence thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you talk about leading others, it's really, for me, the number one thing is they have to respect you in some way. In terms of in whatever area of expertise, you don't necessarily need to be the absolute leader of your field, but there has to be a level of competence in your actual capability. And then the number two thing, even though it shouldn't be number two, it's actually kind of more number one, is they have to feel like you actually care about them.
So it needs to feel genuine.
Yeah, they need to feel that you care about them as a person, not just something that you say that you care about them or you do certain things, but it's a different thing when someone feels that you actually care about them. And if they feel like that you care about them as a person, they'll follow you into battle. Like they'll do anything for you. But it really,
like the leader that you worked for before that you described, that
that's exactly right.
Yeah, you felt that leader really cared about you, and you were prepared to do whatever was needed for that leader.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. So I think those leaders, like actually caring about others and having their interests at heart, and how you interact with them and how you engage with them and engage them. That's something that takes a lot of time. So I'm not naturally an empathetic person. I'm naturally a considerate person. I always think about others and I care about them, but that doesn't make me empathetic. I just kind of mostly just sort of think people kind of think like me and it's fine, and I'll just talk like this and it'll be okay. And that's not the case.
Most people believe that. Most people think that.
They do, and then they're confused otherwise. I'm the complete opposite now. All I'm doing when I'm speaking, when I'm saying something, is I'm completely focused on the other person and how they're actually receiving this message, and how I'm crafting a message such that they receive it in a way that it lands for them how I'm saying it. So what I'm saying and how it's landing to them, that's kind of, if I was saying that to me, I'd be saying it in a different way, like something like kind of the same but different, and subtly different, but importantly different.
Yeah.
So,
and that is really important, because great leaders need to be able to adapt their styles to the people that they're working with and the people in their team. But that doesn't come naturally, does it? That's something that you need to learn how to do. And what did you find helpful when you were learning how to do that? Because it sounds like you also have sort of evolved into that kind of role too. So how did you do that?
So I did that. I was able to do that because I've always been quite self-reflective. So after any interaction or after anything is done with another person, I would naturally just kind of try to assess how that went. And then sort of think, you're a bit tired this morning, and I think you could have come across a bit grumpy. And I try to think about that. And then I sort of, and then, look, they didn't really take that particularly well. And look, I think that maybe the meeting ended too quickly for me to feel like there was complete resolution with that. So sometimes I just sort of, so self-reflection is the number one thing. So if you're reflecting on yourself and reflecting on what you could have always done differently or better, or even sort of say, look, yes, that went really well. I think I've nailed it with that person in terms of that style, and I need to keep that going. I've just established some rapport. That's a really good thing. I want to build on that. As long as you kind of as long as you're constantly reflecting and you're constantly open to feedback and you make it safe for other people to give you feedback, then as long as you do that and you just make an honest effort to kind of improve, like don't be crazy about it, like, you know, because there's
but continually being open and doing that self-reflection and thinking about what needs to improve or what you can do better.
Yeah, and feedback, I mean, feedback, like invited feedback is one way of getting feedback, but just looking at somebody else's face and looking at the demeanor as they walked away from a conversation, that's feedback.
Yeah, that's feedback.
And so just pick up on those things, pick up on feedback during a conversation. You can adjust mid-sentence if you need to. Just kind of, I think as long as you're paying attention, so if leadership is how you're engaging with other people as kind of like the primary active leadership, and especially, and it's really important on an individual level. Yes, you need to be able to sometimes stand up in front of a big room and like give a founding speech, and you know that can be really scary too. But individual conversations can be just as difficult because you know you're having to be completely immersed in another person. As long as you're kind of, as long as you care about that enough to pay attention to it, and don't just care about what I can get this person to do for me right now, and what's the quickest way to do that in the short term. The quickest way to do something in the short term is, it feels like, is to just make people feel anxious about it not having been done. So you kind of say, oh, this is really important for these reasons, and then you know you kind of like you rush through and you get it done. But if all you're doing is a series of those things, at the end of it, you would have kind of built nothing in terms of the relationship with the person, and also it's not really sustainable. You know?
No, it's not. You're ticking things off your list, but you're not really building a sustainable relationship with that person or sustainable foundations for anyone's well-being or for future good work as well. For sure. And I think the other, I like Simon Sinek. Yeah,
I love all of his stuff. So servant leadership, I mean, that's something that I really kind of, you're there to serve others to such that they can feel safe and engaged to improve. Look, and challenge, you know, to challenge, so not always safe as in cushy, but safe to fail. And you know, even though it feels threatening, I've never felt more accomplished as a leader when I actually made myself redundant from my job.
Wow.
Because the team didn't need me anymore. Like there was somebody else in there who did the job in some respects better than what I could do.
Wow.
They didn't have all the same skills that I did, but technically stronger, you know.
Amazing. And so you developed your replacement effectively.
I developed my replacement.
The team so that you didn't need to be there.
And it allowed me to then sort of move away from this traditional actuarial role into, oh, look, I'm going to sit with the MD and solve strategic problems and work on really cool projects that are really difficult. Like, hey, change the claims reserving philosophy in one afternoon. Go, like, show me something on a whiteboard, like, and have a go at that, you know. And so it just means that, so don't hold on to, so when you allow other people to grow, you allow yourself to grow as well.
Yep, absolutely. I love that point. I love that point because so many people hold on to that idea of, well, I'm the boss. I need to know everything. I need to know the most. I need to be the smartest.
Yeah.
When actually, if you can flip that around and do what you've done and develop your team, if you develop your team so they're more capable, they free you up to go and develop yourself and be more capable in other things and to do more interesting things too.
Yeah.
So it's a really important mindset.
Super important. And being across every single detail and being really constrained and like averse to making mistakes will limit the amount of productive output of your team incredibly. And as soon as you sort of say, look, you know what, you just go sort that out. I'm just going to leave you to go sort that out. I'm going to leave you to go sort that out. You guys come back to me. Then I'm not there trying to solve 5 problems. I've got 5 people solving problems for me, doing all that work. Then they come back to me, and then we kind of have a discussion, right? And you get so much more work done. And then you look like an absolute legend to everyone around you. Like, do you know what that team's doing?
Yeah. Because they're actually working as a team. They're being led effectively, and the team is delivering more than you could by yourself.
Definitely. So much more. And look, the other really important thing about leadership is make sure you give credit to your team, right? Because if you don't know how much your team actually, how much of it is due to your team, then you're actually not leading them well. If you think you're doing it all yourself, and if you are doing it all yourself, you're not actually leading them well. But stand up. If something doesn't go right, stand up and take the hit, especially if it's public. Take responsibility. Other people are accountable, but it's your team. So if you are going to be a leader, you do need to stand up and take the hits, and then go and have a conversation in private about a developmental conversation, about an opportunity to learn, because that's all we're forced. That's all we're given in life. We're just given opportunities to learn.
Opportunities, yeah.
And but with leadership, it does, with like Spider-Man said, like with. I'm not going to say it because it's cheesy, but everyone knows what the saying is. So yeah, like if you're in a leadership position, what's expected of you is stronger behaviors, right? So if something goes wrong, own it, stand in front of you,
and having the tough conversations when needed. So
for sure.
Like what are your top tips in tackling those difficult conversations? Because we need to have them. Great leaders have to have difficult conversations, whether it's around delivering some tricky feedback, or some other sort of broaching something else that might make you feel a bit nervous. How do you tackle difficult conversations with your team?
Yeah, so if I'm going to deliver some bad, so I guess some difficult news, so it's going to be a difficult conversation that I'm kind of delivering, and it's going to be more difficult for them. Establishing psychological safety is really important.
What do you mean by that?
It means that that they feel like you care about them, that this isn't going to be the end of the world if something goes wrong. It means that how they feel isn't a heightened level of threat or anxiety when you're actually delivering to them the bad news about a particular thing. So you don't kind of, because as actuaries, we're also kind of, I think we're sort of quite, I don't know, this comes from like the nerdy geeky maths thing. We're kind of a little bit insecure as well, I think sometimes, even though we are like super like capable, but kind of like also like disproportionately insecure. So, people feel like that you're, that maybe you're attacking them. We're really actually, you're talking just about an element of their performance, and it's an opportunity to learn. So when they feel safe, they feel they can trust you. They feel like, even though this is a difficult conversation that you feel that needs to happen, that you've got their best interests at heart, then I think what happens is it does become an opportunity to learn. Yes, when you do hear something, especially if it was new to them, and they didn't kind of, they thought that they were doing a good job, or they did do a good job at a particular thing.
The feedback was a surprise.
Then as long as they, I guess, feel safe and don't, then they're actually in a position to actually be able to take that on.
And to hear what you're saying.
To hear what you're saying. I found in situations when I didn't, either because, and look, sometimes this is really hard, like in a performance management context, it can be quite difficult. And sometimes in those situations, you can't have a complete level of, people won't feel completely safe. It doesn't matter what you do, because they're feeling threatened that they may lose their job. But at least you can do that on an interpersonal level if you can't do it on a professional level. So it maximizes your chances of a good outcome. People don't get upset. Well, they get upset less. They don't get upset as much unnecessarily. And they just kind of hear what you're saying more. They don't just kind of, they don't get, what I found is that when it hasn't been the case, people tend to fight back and become very defensive. They're like, oh, but what about this? And what about this? And you're like, and you're saying, no, wait a second. I'm not talking about your entire you as a person. I'm talking about this one thing. You don't need to be flouting
behavior. Yeah.
And I find it really hard to listen to anything. And that's when you need to kind of step back and say, look, this isn't,
Can't be productive.
It's not productive right now.
Yeah.
It's not productive right now. So psychological safety, and look, just your relationship with that person over time. Like, and often when you get into senior leadership, sometimes you don't have this as an opportunity. It's not available to you. Sometimes you've only worked with someone for a few weeks and all of a sudden you have to have a difficult conversation.
Really quickly, without much history.
Yeah, so look, that's a skill set that's also learned. But look, reach out to people that can help you. Reach out to your HR department. That's what they're there to sort of help you. We don't get a lot of coaching at all, or in anything at all to become a manager. You get promoted to become a manager because you're technically the most competent.
That's right. But to be effective, you've got a whole lot of other skills you need to really use every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then what I would say, if you are receiving negative feedback, try to do your best at that point in time. And I always try to breathe, because I can always sense my heart rate go up, and as soon as my heart rate goes up, it's a good trigger for me. So I've learned that, okay, your heart rate's going up. I need to breathe now.
You need to take a breath. That's a really good tip.
And try to actually listen as much as possible, because ultimately all this will be it'll be an opportunity to learn in some way. This isn't the thing that will end you. Like by definition, right? So this won't kill you, and it's not going to end you.
Yes.
But really try to listen. Really try to ask questions. When people respond, when I give people, when I've had difficult conversation or give people negative feedback, and they respond like that, you're like, oh my God, that person's going to be successful. Because how did they handle that, right? Like, so my level of respect, actually, and my level of confidence that they're going to improve dramatically increases, because they said, look, I don't completely like, and you can be really authentic. You can say, look, I'm not completely comprehending it. I'm not sure if I completely agree, if I completely understand or agree with you, but I'm just really trying to listen. And what I'm going to do is, and it doesn't matter how much you breathe, the heart rate's still like boom, 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 right?
Yeah.
You don't need to respond at that point in time. You can just sort of say, I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to ask heaps of questions. And then I would just like some time to maybe go away and sleep on it and talk to some other people about it. Maybe come back and ask you some follow-up questions before I figure out how I would like to respond and what I would like to do that's different. And then we can have a conversation about that together. Because unless you're talking about some kind of a termination conversation, whether it's someone's being fired or someone's being made redundant, everything is an opportunity to improve. And those conversations don't happen. They will happen at some point in everybody's career and in everybody's life in some way, but 99% of the time it's not that. So there's no need for us to actually feel psychologically threatened or have that fight or flight response, because sometimes we do feel that. In our brains, we're thinking, oh, if they're saying this, I'm going to get, like, even if it's not a conscious thought, you're reacting like this is the end, this is the beginning of the end. Oh my God, all this So
some great tips in there. So managing yourself, whether you're delivering or receiving a difficult conversation or a difficult message, and remembering to breathe, and remembering that you don't have to solve it in that same conversation, that you can, especially if you're feeling a bit surprised, or if the other person's feeling surprised. Even if you're delivering that feedback, you could suggest to them that they might like some time to sleep on it, and that you can finish the conversation once they've had some time to reflect and process, because it can take us time to do that, especially if we're not performing at our best. Take a bit of time to believe that feedback and listen to it and take it on board. And
when I was a workaholic and I was working unsustainable hours, and I made a mistake and someone was telling me about it, I was so upset, because I said, do you know how much work I'm doing for this bloody joint?
Yes. And don't you dare tell me I'm doing it wrong. I'm working so hard.
I don't give a shit that I've done that wrong. Do you know what I'm doing? Like, I'm doing all of this, and all you're doing is talking to me about that. That's not appropriate. But that's because of that's because where
you're at. And it's important to be mindful of where people are at when you're having these conversations.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Definitely.
So So finally, do you have you had something else on that one?
We could be running out of time because I'm talking so much. But so I guess what I would say is that if two other people are having a difficult conversation and it doesn't feel right to you, speak up.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good. So whether you're giving it, receiving it, or observing it, we've all got a role to play in those tricky conversations. Yeah. So finally, Sam, I'm just want to come back to, the start. We talked briefly about how you've got a startup around reducing plastic waste. I'm really keen to hear a bit about what you're doing there, but also, how did you feel confident to move out of, general insurance actuarial work into environmental, eco-friendly, reducing plastic type startup activity? How did you feel confident and have your ability, feel like you had the ability to do that and make that move?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to our critical thinking skills that are trained into us, that are very, with our training. If you take out the insurance and investments and economics and all that, the contextual thing out of it, what you're actually learning is a really sharp skill set to think about things critically and logically, to think through all the different scenarios, to try to think about the things that you don't know about, to try to think about risk. All these things can be applied in any context. The only thing that's missing is subject matter expertise. Mm-hmm. However, you don't need to be a subject matter expert to actually have confidence to apply critical thinking to any kind of a context. You just need to supplement that with other people who are subject matter experts, who really care about a particular thing, but they kind of think in swirls, and everything's a bit hazy and messy, and everyone gets sort of, situations arise where you've got where all you need to do is actually listen to people, make sure they feel heard and feel like they're not threatened and you're saying that you know better than them. I've worked with sort of claims and legal departments who are like exceptionally intelligent when it comes to areas of insurance that I know nothing about. But then how do they design a claims report? They can't, but they've been asked to, right? So how do you have that conversation where you can design a claims monitoring report where they actually say, oh, look, this is what you're giving me the numbers now to actually articulate how things, but how the team's performing, how the portfolio is performing in a way that I understand and that I can actually buy into, and that actually translates back to my real world scenario. And it's very different to sort of saying, give me the claims header file or the claims transaction file, and I'll make you the claims report, and then you figure it out. So I think so have confidence in that. Have confidence that you don't need to know all the answers. So if it is a subjective thing, one of the other businesses that I work on is like a minimalist shoe company. One of my other startups, and the other one's this plastic waste one. You're looking at the branded marketing manager as well, wow. as well as many other hats. I know nothing about, I know nothing about branded marketing, but I kind of just need to be able to make a decision on what's required right now, and what can we actually do with the resources that we've got, and in the future, and is it kind of good enough? And in the future, when we can employ a professional, we will. But in the meantime, as a co-founder in a startup business, let's just
all hands on deck.
Just figure out how to make it work. Just do something that looks okay, that's kind of aligned to your values and looks pretty on Instagram.
And that's quite a different mindset for a lot of actuaries who have come through and passed all these exams, and then we've got this quite clear code of conduct that tells us to stay within our lane and to only do what we know that we can do, or what we've got experience and knowledge to be able to do. Yeah. And what you're saying, Sam, is that, just because you move that out of an insurance context or, what might be considered a traditional actuarial context doesn't mean that you can't do other things in other areas. Yeah. You just need to supplement with the domain knowledge or the subject matter expertise from people that do have it. And you bring what you bring to the table, and your critical thinking that we've been trained as actuaries, and that's got lots of applications.
It does. And the other really good thing that actuaries get trained to do, and I'm not sure if necessarily other professions get drummed into it as much, is they get trained to know or to try to understand and question when their professional experience isn't sufficient for them to be providing some advice or doing something. So those two things together will mean that, yes, you can sort some stuff out, but you should have a pretty good awareness about what you don't know.
Where your limits are. And where you need to pull in some other expertise.
And feel safe about that. Like that's good, right? That's kind of like, that's a place of safety that you can operate. And then once you bring in other expertise and everything like that, I tell you what, you can make a pretty, you can do a really good job. Just with you and working with good people and the rest of that. So have some confidence, have fun. You have to have fun. No one will actually notice half the time when you fail. So don't feel afraid to fail. And most people, the type of people that I like to, you've got to also choose the people in your life that you choose to listen to. And the type of people that I choose to listen to and spend my time with, they're like, do you know what? Most people never even tried.
Yep.
And good on you for trying. And oh my God, I didn't have the courage to do that, and I wish that I did. And they're the type of people that you should surround yourself with and listen to. Forget about the haters, because you're not going to. They're just going to hate you.
Yeah. Great advice. What an exciting and interesting career that you've had. And moving out into reducing plastic waste, and it's very cool. So Sam, what final advice or anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share with in particular actuaries stepping into their first management roles? So new managers, probably through all their technical training, but making that transition to managers and leaders.
Yeah. So I would say it's sort of three things. You need to so you need to manage you need to manage the output of your team. There's two ways you do that very well. You manage what your team does. What's even more effective with that is you manage your stakeholders, because what's defined as a quality outcome is defined by your stakeholders, it's also defined by your stakeholders and not necessarily defined by what you do within your team.
So true.
And the last thing is that as soon as you become a manager, regardless of whether and you don't have to be, you can be a leader and not be a manager, by the way. But as soon as you are a manager, you need to pay attention to your impact as a leader. And that means that you're kind of actually charged with the care and development of people in your charge, right? And that's kind of like, it's not, the entire thing is not on you, but it's up to you to work with that person on an individual level and work together with the team to actually, for them to all be improving, for them to feel like they've got a safe and purposeful workplace, to inspire them to do better. So make sure you pay attention to that, because the first thing we do is, when we become a manager and we're responsible for delivering something that's not just our own spreadsheet, is we just go straight to a task list and go into project management type of mode.
Get task focused.
We get really task focused. You need to do that, but that's short-term focused only. You'll only go so far as a manager and a leader if you focus on that. So the really great managers and leaders manage their teams, manage their stakeholders, but they really focus on people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sam. Some amazing, amazing tips in there, right from finding purpose and meaning in your work as an actuary through to work-life balance and perils around that, things to look out for and how to address it, whether or not leaders are born or made. Some great tips on tackling difficult conversations, whether you're giving them or receiving them or even observing them, and having confidence in your ability to just have a go and do something different and not be constrained by what you think you can and can't do as an actuary. So thank you so much, Sam. It's been wonderful listening to your tips and some of your stories as well today. And I really look forward to speaking with you again.
Definitely. Thank you, Julia. And thank you for what you're doing. I think what you're doing is really great. Thank you so much.